This is Rick Rowe for Rule Investment Media, sponsors of the Natural Resource Investment Symposium, held this year in Boca Raton, Florida, July 7 through 11. Understand that if you attend the conference either in person or online, that we'll give you 50 hours of programming in 4 days, and you will not be able to absorb the information that we give you. The point of these pre-conference interviews is to prepare you, the attendee, to pay attention to the exhibitors that you are interested in so that you can reach out to them, hopefully before the conference, but certainly at the conference, and use the time that you have at the conference to your best possible advantage. Today, I have the great good fortune of introducing a friend, Louis-Pierre Gignac. I've invested with LP and his family now for almost 3 decades, so I can describe him as a friend of long standing as opposed to an old friend. Attendees will remember that every company that exhibits at the Natural Resources Investment Symposium is owned by me personally and or in accounts that I manage, which means that every exhibitor here is vetted. So LP, thank you first of all for your efforts on behalf of shareholders like myself. And secondly, let me thank you for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Investment Symposium. We're delighted to have you with us.
Thanks, Rick. It's always a pleasure to be part of your symposium. It's a great event.
Give me a brief history, if it's possible, of the Gignac family's experience and exposure to mining so that we let people know something about the people who are running their money in G mining.
Yeah, so we have essentially a family of mining engineers in our business, in our family. So it starts with my father, Louis Gignac Sr., who's a mining engineer. Me and my brother are also mining engineers. So we've kind of followed him in his footsteps, and we both essentially worked within the Cambior family, if you wish, when he was running that business that got bought out by IM Gold in 2006. So right after that, we essentially created G Mining Services, which is an engineering and consulting company based out of Montreal that's basically been doing great work for third-party companies over the years, building great mines such as Fruta del Norte for Lundin Gold, Marion for the Newmont in Suriname. So we have essentially been building mines for third parties, and we came to the conclusion that it would be nice to start building assets that we would manage and control. So we created G Mining Ventures in October of 2020. We acquired the Tocantinzinho mine, which is currently in construction and soon to be producing first gold in the coming months. So this is a construction that's gone very well, typical of our experiences building mines in South America, where we deliver them on time and on budget.
I think that's what's important to note. I think despite the fact that you're residents of the frozen north in Montreal, that you seem to have developed an expertise for building mines in tropical high rainfall environments like the northern part of South America. I know that personally I was extremely impressed with your on-time, on-budget performance at Fruta del Norte. But more importantly, I guess the Lundin family who commissioned you were impressed enough that they were founding shareholders, if I understand it, of G Mining. Perhaps you could talk about the specific expertise the Gignac family has in building this type of mine and why that's important to what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, it basically started off with Omai back in the day in Guyana, which was the first mine that Cambior built overseas. So as you know, Guyana is in the same tropical environment as we are building Tocantinzinho right now in Brazil. So it has essentially 6 months of rainfall during the year, where it rains 2 meters during that time frame. So it's really a challenging environment. Most of these projects are remote, so you need to build infrastructure to support these operations. So that there's quite a bit of work involved. But yeah, we've essentially built experience dealing with these types of environments, especially when it comes to mining them as well. You do deal with a weathered material at surface that's fairly challenging, but when you know how to deal with it and plan for the rain, you can be quite successful in these environments. And, as we've seen, the Guyana Shield has great deposits that have been very successful mines.
We speculated at last year's conference that G Mining would be able to complete their most recent effort on time, on budget. Thus far, is that expectation correct?
Yeah, that's very much correct. As we're speaking now, our project is essentially close to 90% complete. We have 2 months left of construction, and we're also doing commissioning work on the process plant. So we're essentially 2 months away from producing first gold. So basically, the second half of 2024 will be in commercial production, generating great free cash flow at a time when the gold price is hitting all-time highs. So we couldn't have actually timed this better, and we're quite happy with the fact that we're delivering this mine on time and right at peak gold price.
When might you deliver nameplate capacity? In other words, when might this mine be fully commissioned and in fact, performing up to feasibility stage expectation?
Yeah, our planning right now is to hit nameplate and be fully ramped up by the end of the year. So in the fourth quarter of 2024, we'll essentially be at 100% capacity.
And as a consequence of this mine building exercise, what does your balance sheet look like?
So when we did our project financing back in 2022, we had put together full funds for our project. We haven't raised any money since. So we'll be sitting on about 25 million of cash before we become cash flow positive. So that includes obviously building up working capital, inventories to support this operation. So that's basically how the balance sheet is going to land by the time we're in commercial production. We did have Franco-Nevada as a strong financial backer with a stream, a term loan that we just did their last drawdown on a couple weeks ago. So yeah, we're fully financed to get through the build and start generating cash.
So fully financed through round one of the building of G Mining. You told me a couple of years ago when I joined your shareholder roster that your intention was that this first mine would be a stepping stone to what you hoped would be a multi-mining operation. And very recently you took the second step. I'm delighted to say that I'm also a shareholder, fairly substantial shareholder in your second step. So perhaps you could describe the most recently announced transaction and what that might mean for your shareholders.
Yeah, so just essentially last week, we made the announcement to merge with Reunion Gold, which has the Oca West project in Guyana. So we definitely view Oca West as one of the most exciting discoveries in the Guyana Shield in recent years. So for us, this is an opportunity to do a rinse and repeat of acquire, build, and generate value for shareholders with Oca West. So what we see is really a second asset that we can quickly get into construction and put into production. And on a combined basis will catapult us above 500,000 ounces of annual gold production. So definitely bringing us into the intermediate producer category, and one that will definitely bring liquidity to our stock, increase our free float, and by the end of the year, make us eligible for index inclusion as well, which I think is always a good thing for shareholders.
Could you talk a bit about this deposit? I have been very impressed with the Reunion deposit for quite some time, but rather than burden my audience with my own opinion, I'd like to hear an opinion of somebody who studied it well enough to buy it.
Yeah, we obviously did extensive due diligence on this, as you can imagine. So, I mean, we turned the resource inside and out. It's definitely a resource that is very robust. So we're talking about a 2-gram open pit resource. Currently, the resource has about 4 million ounces in the indicated category already for the open pit. So really drilled to a good level of confidence. What they've demonstrated so far with drilling is that this continues to about 1,000 meters depth. So the anticipation is that we'll have an underground mine as well. That'll be obviously slightly higher grade given the different cutoff grades that we're using for the underground. So definitely on a combined basis, the 1.1 million ounces of underground inferred resource will definitely be part of the mine plan going forward. And I would say the Reunion team have done an excellent job in terms of drilling this and building up this resource over the last 2 years. And from our experience in the Guyana Shield, we've always seen these assets grow their resources from the point of when they start their mines to replacing depletion and growing that resource base over time. So we expect the same thing to happen with Oko West.
Is it the intention of the Gignac family to continue to make the deposit bigger, or is it the intention of the family to concentrate their finances and their efforts now on building it? In other words, is 4 or 5 million ounces enough, or are you going to try and see it get bigger before you scope it and build it?
Yeah, I think what we'll definitely try to do is continue drilling and growing the resource. But what we're seeing now is we have critical mass definitely to know how we want to design and scale and scope this project. So currently, I mean, Reunion is working on a scoping or PA, preliminary economic assessment, that would be produced in the third quarter. But straight on the back of that, we would lead that straight into a feasibility study to be able to initiate construction. Also, I would say, I mean, the government has been very supportive of the mining industry and this project in particular. And I mean, a lot of the government officials in Guyana still remember Louis Gignac from the OMI days, where the current vice president was the president back in the 90s when OMI was running. So I think they have full confidence in our capabilities and how we do business. So I think they've welcomed this merger and this combination with Reunion Gold.
Attendees who aren't as familiar with Guyana as they ought to be probably need to know that Guyana is sitting on in excess of 11 million barrels of recoverable oil offshore, amortized over 900,000 people. It's a country that is in a unique position to fund incentives and infrastructure for the mining industry without having to burden that industry in too egregious a fashion, given what they'll likely be able to do to Chevron and Exxon. LP, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the Reunion transaction, in particular the grade at depth, and whether you see the ability to find high-grade feeders which would enhance the economics of going to depth. I'm not trying to say I'm not impressed with the open pit resource at 2 grams. I am. I'm a little nervous about the resource at depth given the grade.
Yeah, so the underground grade is running around 3 grams per ton. So for an underground, that's, I would say, on the low side, but it is wide mineralization, so that'll lend itself to essentially bulk underground mining methods. And really, the beauty of it here is having the open pit and underground overlap in terms of their production profiles. So the underground gets to benefit from the economies of scale of the open pit in terms of cheap processing costs, a lot of your G&A costs absorbed by a larger operation. So we do see the underground being very value enhancing to the overall project. And to your point, so far when you look at the grade profile, generally increases at depth. So that's how you see the open pit. Even within the open pit, you do kind of get the best grades towards the bottom of the pit. Which is the way the nature is placed, the mineralization. But what is unique with these environments is you have a weathered saprolite at surface. So that's typically a gravy material because it's very cheap to process. You get excellent recoveries. And so you have the ability to push your process plant tonnage and really get more gold production up front, which is always nice for the economics and returns of a project.
More tonnage up front means a quicker payback period. Do you have any
Exactly.
indication now before the preliminary economic assessment what that looks like?
Look, to be honest, it's going to be between 2 and 3 years. So very short payback is what we would expect.
And feel free not to answer the next question. It's leading, perhaps. Given your stated goal with regards to acquisition and the fact that the border between Reunion and their neighbor to the north, G2, or put differently, given that this may be two different deposits, but certainly one mineralizing event, have discussions taken place between either yourselves or Reunion and G2?
Yeah, we've only had very preliminary discussions with G2. It was more introductory in nature. So yeah, that's something that we would look to pursue in the future because I think everyone can understand the industrial logic of bringing these two properties together, if you wish. So yeah, they're definitely something that we'll pursue in the future once our transaction closes.
You may know I'm a G2 shareholder as well, so I wish you every possible success in those discussions. Um, we had a wonderful interview with you last year and very good follow through in terms of our attendees becoming shareholders. Your stock also performed very well in what was until very recently an absolutely dismal gold stock market. So thank you for that. To the extent that our existing or last year's attendees and this year's attendees want to find out more about what your company is doing, what person should they contact and how might they contact that person?
Definitely through our website. There's all our contact information. We have Jesse Liu Ernsting, who's our VP Investor Relations and Communications, that can quarterback getting answers and various information to investors or potential investors. That's always the best channel, and then she'll help get a hold of me as required to get in contact with investors.
Well, thank you for subjecting yourself to this. Thank you for your ongoing support of the Natural Resources Symposium. And personally, of course, thank you for your efforts on behalf of your own and your new Reunion shareholders. I look forward to hosting you at Boca Raton, and I encourage our attendees to reach out to you even before the conference begins, but certainly at the conference to learn more about this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rick. Look forward to seeing you at the conference, and I'm sure it'll be a great event.